Hi, my name is Catherine Powell, and I work for Junior Achievement of the Eastern Shore. Junior Achievement is a nonprofit organization that helps teach students about financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship. Today, our focus is going to be on a lesson called Get Hired, Communication and Conflict Management Skills. This will focus mainly on the work readiness aspect, but it can be applied to all aspects of your life. What I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to share my screen with you so that we can check out a PowerPoint together. I also just suggest that you have a piece of paper in front of you and a pen or a pencil so that you can work through the different slides. Feel free to pause at any time, take pictures or screenshots of the slides as we work through this session. So like I said, our lesson today is Get Hired, Conflict Management Skills. And this is coming from JA Career Success. The overview of this session, we will apply communication skills to resolve conflicts in work-based scenarios. We will role-play conflicts and conflict management. We will explore behaviors that inflame conflict and behaviors that lead to resolution. So our main focus is on the work setting, but I want you to think about how you can apply this to every aspect of your life, because if we're practicing these things in different parts of our lives, we're more likely to be able to apply it in the workplace setting. Our objectives is that we will be able to recognize common responses to conflict, and we will be able to apply conflict management skills to resolve work-based issues. Some of the key terms we're going to focus on and we'll refer to throughout this session are, of course, communication, the process of sharing thoughts, questions, ideas, and solutions. We often think of communicating through our words verbally, but I want you to take a minute to think about all of the different ways that you communicate. We communicate through email. We communicate based on our facial expressions, our gestures. So there's a lot to think about when we talk about communication. Conflict, a disagreement over opinions, principles, or interests. Then we have conflict management, the process of handling conflict fairly between people with opposing needs, ideas, or goals. And when we talk about a workplace setting, conflict isn't always just about work. So it's important to remember that too. Let me go back to this slide real quick. I want you to take a minute to close your eyes and picture yourself walking into a room and finding two teachers having a meeting. Then imagine walking into a recreational setting, like a ball game or a picnic, and seeing the same two teachers hanging out as friends. I want you to take a minute to either describe or think to yourself or jot down what was different about the way the two professionals interacted at work and outside of work. This would be a good time to pause if you need time for discussion. For example, outside of work, was their posture more relaxed? Were their words more casual? And was their tone more informal? So think about the way that they're communicating, the way they're sharing their thoughts, questions, ideas, and solutions is different based on the two different settings. There should be a difference in how you communicate outside of work and at work, even if those you work with are your family and friends. It's important that you always stay professional in the workplace setting. Businesses need employees who will make the company's interests a priority, not their own personal interests. So when you are at work, you are there to work for the business, for the company, to get that job done. It takes conscious effort to remain professional and respectful at work. with your boss, coworkers, and especially with customers. So this is a skill that you can work on and get better at, but it's always extremely important to remain professional no matter what the circumstances may be. You don't want one incident to ruin your experience at work and potentially your job there. People are always communicating without even realizing it. So this is what we were discussing a little bit before. What we say and what we write are two major ways to communicate, but how we stand, where we look, what all our facial expressions are, and the tone of voice we use are other ways we continually communicate. That's another thing about being professional is you want to make sure your facial expressions are staying the same. It's also important to remember sarcasm is not taken the same way by everyone, and that might not always be a good fit in the workplace setting. So this is a page I suggest that you screenshot or take a picture of. It, of course, has our key terms over here: communication, conflict, and conflict management. And it also has tips for workplace communication. Take a minute to read those to yourself. So we have 1, carefully choose your words, both in writing and speaking. Avoid slang and casual terms. 2, stay professional in your nonverbal communication, including facial expressions, hand and body gestures, posture, and tone of voice. For example, always make eye contact when speaking. Use active listening. Concentrate on what the speaker is trying to communicate. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. This is something that I know that I need to work on. It's almost like I don't want to forget what the next thing is I'm going to say. But if I'm doing that, I'm not really listening to what that person is saying, and they could be relaying some important information. 4, when communicating and writing, remember to reread before sending because the reader cannot see your nonverbal cues. Words that can be funny in person may come across as insulting in writing. This is also one with the writing piece. There are times it is much easier, it may not be as comfortable, it's much easier to pick up the phone and call someone. You can clearly get your ideas across, you can have that conversation back and forth, you can answer any questions. Might not always be convenient, but if it's something you don't feel comfortable putting in writing, pick up the phone and call someone. 5, stay positive and calm with customers, coworkers, and supervisors. 6, avoid multitasking. Maybe you're able to have a conversation while working on the computer, but in the workplace, it is professional to stop and give another person your undivided attention. No matter who that person might be, stop what you're doing, turn towards them, give them your eye contact so that they know you are listening. This is another important slide. I would take a picture of this or screenshot it. Take a minute to check these out. So remember, while it is important to demonstrate these communication skills in everyday workplace interactions, it becomes even more important when conflict arises at work. So it's always a good idea to look at the good conflict management and the poor conflict management. What should I do? What shouldn't I do? Good conflict management. I express my ideas, but I genuinely want the best resolution, assertive reaction to conflict. I stick to my beliefs, but listen to other points of view. I speak calmly and am aware of my own tone and volume. I want to understand others' point of view as much as I want others to understand mine. I use active listening by rephrasing what others say so I understand exactly what they mean. I show I care about the other person. I try to show others that I see the conflict from their perspective, even if I don't agree with them. I am willing to compromise to find a solution in which everyone wins. Even when I don't start the conflict, I know I am responsible for how I react to it. I avoid toxic words. I try to smile and use positive nonverbal postures and gestures. It's also important to remember or realize that the person you might be disagreeing with, it is most likely not a personal thing. Sometimes we need to take a step back and realize that, maybe take a little break and reassess the situation. Poor conflict management, things we should not be doing. I choose one extreme reaction or the other, combat or silence. A realistic solution is not my primary goal. Getting along is more important than the best resolution to the conflict. Or getting my way is more important than the best resolution to the conflict. Remember, you have to work with these people. You want a common goal, a common solution. I make excuses, get mad, or get loud to get my way. I shut down and don't contribute to managing the conflict. I criticize or say hurtful things in an attempt to win. I interrupt when others are trying to speak. I think my point of view is more important. I blame others and do not take any blame for the conflict. I use toxic words such as you always, you never, never mind, whatever, and obviously. Think about on the other side too. If you were hearing these words from someone else, we probably wouldn't take those the best way. There are many other words that we can use to express our opinion. And again, get a common solution. So once again, why is conflict management so important? Conflict occurs at work as it does in life. Anytime two or more people don't agree on something, they are going to have conflict. So this is going to happen in all aspects of life. It is inevitable. But if we have the tools and the strategies to come with a positive attitude and skills, we can work together for a solution. Employers expect employees to approach differences and conflicts with their minds, not their emotions. That's a big one. If we manage conflict, we can turn it into an opportunity that can result in higher quality work and a better work atmosphere. You want to enjoy being at work. You want to enjoy who you work with. If conflict is allowed to fester, it can cost businesses and employees a lot of time, money, and energy. Both the work and the employees suffer. All right, so the activity that we would do in a traditional setting, if we weren't living in a virtual world right now, we'll use information about good and poor conflict management to role play conflict scenarios in the workplace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read, if we were together, I'm going to read how the activity would go, and you are welcome to do this depending on what setting you're in or who you're with. The activity setup. You will play the part of actors and writers who create role-playing scenes around some workplace conflicts. You can have 4 students, or however many you have, come to the front of the room to play 4 characters facing conflicts. 2 students will play people with poor conflict management skills. The other 2 will have a slightly different role. One will have poor conflict skills, the other good conflict skills. Their acting will demonstrate how conflict often can be resolved constructively. The other students will play the role of writers. They will use the numbered descriptions in the conflict profiles, which we'll get to ask the actors to use specific words and actions to portray poor and good conflict management skills. And you can also refer back to that guide that we used. Those sets of actors will role play at least one of the scenarios on the following page, and we'll get to those in a minute. And then you can repeat those with the second scenario. So basically you would have 2 different skits. One with a good way to respond to the scenario, one with a bad way, a poor conflict resolution way to respond to the scenario. Since we might not be all together today, you can write down your ideas. You can stop and pause and have this discussion as a group about proper conflict management and poor conflict management, how a good way to react and not the best way to react. Remember, conflict is so common, we often can recognize it and describe what others should do to resolve it, but it is still challenging to make good choices when in the heat of a conflict yourself. So it might be easier as an outsider looking in what you would do, but when you're in the actual conflict, it's not always as easy. The first scenario is an employee-customer conflict. Chris works at a cell phone store at the mall. One of the responsibilities of the job is to keep the customer happy while looking after the company's interests. Casey comes into the store frustrated because the monthly bill reflects extra fees for exceeding the allotted plan minutes. If you are the employee, how would you react to this frustrated customer? This is where I suggest you take a minute to pause. You can have this discussion. Refer back to that conflict management sheet that gives you suggestions of positive ways and poor ways to manage this. So remember, you want to remain positive and calm. You can acknowledge that the person is upset. You can assure them that you'll help take care of it and take a look at their bill together. I think it's also important to remember you can always ask for help, others that you work with, if you're not sure about their bill or if it might just be a miscommunication. But again, take this time to think about things you would want to do and things you would not want to do. All right, the next scenario is an employer-employee conflict. Dakota is a manager at a car wash and is in charge of scheduling the part-time employees. This is a tough task because many of the workers have become unreliable and don't show up or don't work the full shift assigned to them. Jesse is an employee at the car wash through a work for credit program at school. Jesse leaves school 4 hours during the scheduled work days, but is a regular student the rest of the time. Jesse is reliable at work, so Dakota asks Jesse to cover shifts for employees who don't show up. The trouble is, Jesse is getting back to school late and getting in trouble with teachers for being tardy or absent. Take a minute to think about how you would want to approach this and how you wouldn't want to approach this. So remember, you would want to choose your words carefully. You would want to remain professional and stay positive and calm. I think a big part of this is just advocating for yourself. It's important that the employer, Dakota, understands what's going on when Jesse gets back to school, and that also the teachers understand why he is tardy or absent. I think there would be a mutual understanding if that was explained. It could also be where Jesse connects Dakota and his teachers via email or phone call so that they understand a situation and they come up with a plan together. Okay? Remember, you need to advocate for yourself. You need to make people aware of the situation. If you don't explain it, if they don't know, then you're probably going to continue to get in trouble for that. Or your bosses can continue to ask you to cover shifts. But again, take this time to talk about what you just decided and what you discussed was a good way to approach this and a not so good way to approach this. The next scenario, Pat and Harper are coworkers at an amusement park. Together, they have been given 50 t-shirts to sell to customers in the park. If they sell all 50 shirts by the deadline, they both get a bonus. If they miss the deadline, neither gets a bonus. They decide to split up and sell separately. Every time Pat sees Harper, Harper is chatting with people instead of trying to move around the park as quickly as possible to sell the shirts. Every time Harper starts a conversation with someone who might buy a shirt, Pat comes over and tries to get Harper to move faster. There are only a couple of hours to go before the deadline, and both are frustrated when they stop at the same concession stand for a break. Think about a good way to approach this if you are Harper or if you are Pat. Remember, you would want to choose your words carefully, remain professional, stay positive and calm. Might want to come up with a plan. I think it's also okay to explain how you're feeling on both ends. It's also might be a good idea to ask how the other person is feeling. That way you get their perspective as well. But it sounds like, again, this is just kind of a miscommunication. So to summarize and review our session, Get Hired, Communication and Conflict Management Skills. Many employers report that new workers lack workplace communication skills. If you begin practicing these now, you'll have an edge when competing for jobs in the future. These activities reflect the kind of conflicts found in any type of business. Learning to deal with conflict will be crucial to your success, not only in work, but in life. Before we move on, I do want to share with you this extended learning activity, dealing with conflict. So you can brainstorm as many types of jobs as you can in 60 seconds. Review the list and describe a conflict that might arise in one of those jobs. We can also visit and learn more about workplace communication by visiting, oops, see if I can go back here. If I go to, see, jamyway.org. So here I am at jamyway.org. I can go to, I went up here to the top left corner. I clicked on resources. I can go down here to learn about ethics. And I have a link here. The 40 classroom activities can be downloaded right here. And session 2 is important. Choose your professional attitude. Students learn that maintaining a positive attitude in the face of negative or apathy from other employees is part of a good work ethic. And also, if we scroll down here, this is another good activity. Session 11, the customer service game. Students examine customer service. They consider attitudes and behaviors that build customer trust, like work readiness, and this relates to our work readiness and entrepreneurship skills. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope that you can take these communication skills and apply them to every aspect of your life, but definitely at the workplace setting. If you practice these skills now, they can be beneficial in the future. Thanks again.